My name is Margaret, and the message that changed everything arrived on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I remember exactly where I was standing when my phone lit up. I had just finished wiping down the kitchen counter, the scent of lemon cleaner still lingering in the air, when I saw my daughter-in-law's name appear on the screen. Lydia. Even before opening it, something inside me tightened, that familiar uneasiness I had learned to ignore over the years. I shouldn't have. Margaret, we decided to keep Mother's Day small this year. Just immediate family. Hope you understand. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. Immediate family. I stood there, staring at those words like they might rearrange themselves into something less hurtful. But they didn't. They sat there, cold and deliberate. After 4 years of marriage to my son Daniel, I was still not considered immediate family. I set my phone down carefully, like it might shatter if I held it too tightly. My reflection in the kitchen window looked older than I felt, or maybe exactly as old as I felt in that moment. For years, I had done everything I could to support them. When they bought their house, I stepped in without hesitation. Every month, like clockwork, I sent them $700 to help with their mortgage. It wasn't easy, not on a fixed income, but I told myself it was worth it. Daniel deserved stability. He deserved a good life. And I believed helping them would keep me close to him. I was wrong. My phone rang a minute later. "Mom," Daniel said, his voice already tense. "Did you see Lydia's message?" "Yes," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I did. I was just wondering, when did I stop being immediate family?" There was a pause, the kind that speaks louder than words. I could hear muffled movement on his end, like he had turned away, probably covering the phone. When he came back, his voice had changed. Firmer. Less him. "Mom, it's not like that. Lydia's parents are coming over, and we just wanted something simple this year." Simple. I let that word settle between us. "So her parents are immediate family," I said quietly, "but I'm not." "Please don't start," he sighed. "We just thought it would be better this way. Things have been tense." Tense. That word again, always used as a polite substitute for everything Lydia had been doing for years. The subtle dismissals. The way she would interrupt me mid-sentence. The way she excluded me from plans, then acted surprised when I found out. The way Daniel slowly drifted further away, one small step at a time. "I see," I said. And then, before I could stop myself, I asked the question that would change everything. "Do you still need the mortgage payment this month?" He didn't hesitate. "Of course we do. Why wouldn't we?" I closed my eyes. "Just checking," I said softly. "I'll take care of it." After we hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope in front of me. The check was already written. 4 years of checks. 4 years of convincing myself that I was helping build something meaningful, a connection, a bond, a place in their lives. But suddenly, all I could see was a pattern. I wasn't being included. I was being used. That evening, Lydia sent another message. "Just so you know, we're doing something special for my mom. She really deserves it this year. I hope you're not upset. We just feel more comfortable this way." More comfortable. I read that sentence over and over until the words blurred. Was I really that unbearable? Was loving my son too much something that needed to be managed? My hands moved before my mind could catch up. I picked up the check. For a moment, I hesitated. All the years flashed through my mind. Raising Daniel alone after his father left, working 2 jobs, skipping vacations, skipping new clothes, skipping everything that wasn't necessary so he could have more. Everything I had done was for him. And now I was standing in my own kitchen, wondering if I had become nothing more than a monthly payment. Something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not even sadness. Clarity. I tore the check in half. The sound was sharper than I expected. Final. Then again. and again, until there was nothing left but scraps of paper in my hands. I dropped them into the trash and stood there, breathing heavily. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. The next morning, I called the bank and canceled the automatic transfer I had set up long ago. "Is everything okay?" the woman on the line asked kindly. "Yes," I said after a pause. "It is now." And I meant it. That weekend, while they celebrated Mother's Day without me, I turned off my phone and spent the day in my backyard. I planted new flowers, one by one, pressing each seed into the soil with quiet determination. It wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. About remembering who I was before I started begging for a place in someone else's life. But peace doesn't last long when it disrupts someone else's comfort. Monday morning came with consequences, and I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Monday morning didn't begin quietly. It began with my phone ringing at 7:18 a.m., sharp and insistent, cutting through the stillness of my house. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching the sunlight slowly creep across the floor, trying to hold on to the calm I had found the day before. When I saw Daniel's name on the screen, I already knew why he was calling. I let it ring once, twice. By the third time, I picked up. "Margaret, what did you do?" His voice came fast, strained, already edged with anger.
No greeting. No hesitation.
I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. "Good morning to you too, Daniel." "Don't do that," he snapped. "The bank just called. The mortgage payment didn't go through. They said the transfer was canceled. Tell me this is some kind of mistake." "It's not a mistake," I said calmly. There was silence on the other end for a second, then a sharp exhale. "You canceled it? Why would you do that? Do you have any idea what position that puts us in?" I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the garden I had started planting the day before. It felt strange how steady I was, how different this felt compared to every other time I had tried to explain myself over the years. "I realized something," I said. "If I'm not considered family, then I shouldn't be responsible for your home." "That's ridiculous," Daniel shot back immediately. "This is about Mother's Day, isn't it? You're seriously punishing us over one dinner?" "It's not about one dinner," I replied, my voice still even, though I could feel something tightening in my chest. "It's about years of being pushed aside, ignored, excluded. That message was just the last piece." "You're overreacting," he said. "Lydia just wanted something small. You always take things personally." I closed my eyes for a brief moment. That sentence, "you always take things personally," had become a shield, a way to dismiss everything I felt without having to examine it. "Daniel," I said quietly, "answer me honestly. When was the last time you invited me over without me asking first?" He didn't answer. "When was the last time we had dinner together, just us, without Lydia canceling or changing the plans?" Still silence. "When was the last time you called me just to talk?" His voice softened slightly when he finally spoke, but it wasn't with understanding. It was with discomfort. "Mom, things change. I have my own life now." "I know that," I said, "and I've respected that. But respect goes both ways." Before he could respond, I heard Lydia's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. "What is she saying? Put me on speaker." "No," Daniel muttered, but it was too late. "Margaret," Lydia's voice cut in, loud and controlled, "this is extremely inappropriate. You don't just cancel financial support without notice. We have obligations." I straightened slightly in my chair. "And I have boundaries." "You agreed to help us," she continued, ignoring my words. "We made financial decisions based on that support." "I agreed to help my son," I said, "not to be treated like an outsider while doing it." "Oh, here we go," she scoffed. "This again. You always make everything about yourself." That did it. For the first time, I felt the anger rise clearly, not chaotic, not overwhelming, but sharp and focused. No, I said, my voice firmer now. For years, I made everything about you, about keeping the peace, about not upsetting you, about pretending I didn't notice the way you treated me. That ends now. There was a pause, not the uncertain kind from before, but something heavier. Daniel spoke again, his tone colder. So, what? This is your solution? You cut us off financially until we behave the way you want. That's not what I said, I replied. I'm not controlling you. I'm stepping back. There's a difference. It feels like control, Lydia said sharply. You're using money to manipulate us. I let out a quiet breath. If I wanted to control you, Lydia, I would have done it a long time ago. I didn't. I trusted you both to treat me with basic respect. Respect goes both ways, she fired back. You question our spending. You show up unannounced, you. I have never shown up unannounced, I interrupted calmly. You make us uncomfortable, she insisted, her voice rising. That's the truth. And instead of respecting that, you're punishing us. Daniel added, This isn't like you, Mom. I don't even recognize you right now. That sentence landed harder than the rest. I didn't recognize myself either, but not in the way he meant. I'm still the same person, I said quietly. I'm just done being silent. Another long pause followed. I could almost feel the shift happening, not understanding, not yet, but resistance meeting something it couldn't easily push aside anymore. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice tired now. We need that money, Mom. You know that. I looked down at my hands resting on the table. For a moment, the old instinct returned, the urge to fix it, to soften, to give in just to restore peace. But I didn't. You need to figure out your finances, I said. Like every other adult. That's unbelievable, Lydia snapped. After everything we've included you in. I almost laughed at that, but I stopped myself. I think this conversation is over, I said instead. Margaret. Daniel started. I love you, I said firmly, cutting through the tension. But I won't continue like this. And then I hung up. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone down, but the feeling that followed wasn't regret. It was relief. Not the light, fleeting kind, something deeper, heavier. Like I had been holding my breath for years and had finally exhaled. For a while, I just sat there in silence. Then the messages started. First from Daniel. Mom, please call me back. Then Lydia. This is incredibly selfish behavior. Another. You're proving exactly why we needed space. And another. If anything happens because of this, it's on you. I didn't respond. Instead, I stood up, walked outside, and returned to my garden. The soil was still soft from the day before. I knelt down and continued planting, letting the repetition calm my mind. But even as I worked, I could feel it. This wasn't over. Not even close. Around noon, my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. Then another. Then a message. Margaret, this is Lydia's mother. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long moment before locking it and placing it face down on the table beside me. The line had been drawn. And whether they liked it or not, I wasn't stepping back over it. But deep down, I knew something else too. They weren't going to accept this quietly. And whatever came next was going to be much worse. By the time Wednesday came, the situation had already grown far beyond a private family conflict. It had become public. I found out the same way most people do these days, through social media. My phone, which I had kept mostly on silent, lit up with a notification from an old neighbor who rarely contacted me. Margaret, is everything okay? The message felt strange, out of place. Beneath it was a link. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The post was from Lydia. It was long, carefully written, emotional in all the right places, or rather, all the places that would draw sympathy. She described how she and Daniel had been abandoned during a difficult financial time, how I had suddenly withdrawn support without warning, and how my behavior had been controlling and emotionally manipulative for years. I read every word slowly, my chest tightening with each sentence. She painted herself as patient, long-suffering, Daniel as a devoted husband caught between two women, and me as a bitter, overbearing mother who couldn't accept that her son had grown up. There was no mention of the exclusions, no mention of the holidays I spent alone, no mention of the years of quiet support. Just a perfectly crafted story. And people believed it. The comments were what hurt the most. People I had known for years, distant relatives, old friends, even some neighbors, were offering sympathy to Lydia, praising her strength, criticizing me without ever hearing my side. No one deserves that. Toxic parents are the worst. You're better off without her. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me go very still. Not shattered, not broken, just still. Because in that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't just about misunderstanding anymore. This was intentional. She wasn't just pushing me out. She was replacing me in the narrative entirely.
My phone rang. It was my sister, Helen.
I answered immediately. Margaret, I just saw that post, she said without preamble. Tell me that's not true. It isn't, I replied quietly. Then what happened? I took a deep breath and explained everything. The message, the exclusion, the years of subtle distancing, the financial support, the confrontation. I spoke slowly, carefully, as if laying out pieces of a puzzle I had only recently begun to see clearly myself. Helen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she let out a long breath. I knew something felt off about her, she said finally. She's too polished, too controlled. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. I admitted that I was being sensitive. You weren't, Helen said firmly, and you shouldn't stay quiet about this. That idea made me uncomfortable immediately. I don't want to fight publicly, I said. That's exactly what she wants. Maybe, Helen replied, but silence lets her control the story. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about that.
Control.
That word kept coming back. Had I really given up that much of it over the years? The more I thought about it, the more pieces began to fall into place. Small moments I had dismissed at the time, now taking on new meaning. Invitations that never seemed to reach me. Conversations where Daniel reacted to things I never said. Plans that changed without explanation, always with Lydia as the messenger. It wasn't one big event. It was a pattern, a slow, deliberate shift. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went up to the attic. The boxes were exactly where I had left them, labeled, organized, untouched. I pulled them down one by one, carrying them into the living room. Photo albums, old cards, printed emails, even bank statements I had kept for record-keeping. I spread everything out across the floor. At first, it felt excessive, almost obsessive. But as I began sorting through it, something unexpected happened. A timeline emerged. In the early photos, Daniel and I were close, not just in pictures but in energy.
There was ease,
warmth, frequent visits, holidays together, casual dinners that didn't require planning weeks in advance. Then Lydia appeared. At first, nothing seemed wrong. She smiled in photos, stood close to Daniel, was polite if a little distant with me. I remember telling friends how lucky he was. But then the changes began. Fewer visits, shorter conversations, canceled plans. I found a birthday card I had sent Daniel 2 years ago. His response had been a simple text. Thanks. That was it. No call. No visit. I moved on to the financial records next. Page after page of transfers, checks, payments. Not just the mortgage, there were other things too. A repair bill, car insurance, 1 month, property taxes another time. Each one justified at the time. Each one explained as temporary. Temporary had turned into years. And yet, alongside those records, I found something else. Screenshots. Not mine. Lydia's. They were from her public social media posts, vacations, new furniture, shopping trips, designer bags, weekend getaways, expensive dinners. The contrast was impossible to ignore. I sat back, surrounded by the evidence of my own denial. I hadn't just been excluded. I had been useful, and that usefulness had been carefully maintained. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from my thoughts. A message from Daniel. Mom, we need to talk.
Please.
I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to protect the fragile clarity I had finally reached. But another part, the part that still remembered the little boy who used to run to me after school, who trusted me without question, couldn't walk away. Not yet. Tomorrow, I typed back. Come by in the afternoon. I put the phone down and looked around the room. What had started as confusion was turning into something else now. Understanding. Not complete. Not comfortable. But real. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt something stronger than hurt. I felt prepared. Because whatever happened next, I wouldn't be walking into it blindly. Not anymore. Daniel arrived the next afternoon at exactly 2:07 p.m. I noticed the time because I had been standing by the window for several minutes already, watching the street with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. When his car finally pulled into the driveway, he didn't get out right away. He just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. For a moment, I saw not the man he had become, but the boy he used to be, the one who hesitated before admitting he had made a mistake, the one who needed a moment to gather courage before facing something difficult. Then he opened the door and stepped out. He looked tired, not just physically, though the dark circles under his eyes made that obvious, but something deeper, like the weight of the past few days had finally settled on him. I opened the front door before he could knock. Come in, I said quietly. He stepped inside, his gaze immediately drawn to the living room, to the evidence. The floor was still covered, neatly arranged, but impossible to ignore. Papers, photos, printouts, all laid out in a way that told a story without needing explanation. What is all this? He asked, his voice low. The truth, I replied. Or, at least the part of it I can prove. He hesitated, then walked further in, slowly lowering himself onto the couch like he wasn't entirely sure his legs would hold him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I didn't come here to fight, he said finally. Neither did I answered. That was the truth. I didn't want another argument. I didn't want raised voices or accusations. I wanted clarity. For him. For me. For what it's worth, he added, staring at the floor. Things aren't good right now. I studied him carefully. With Lydia? He let out a short, humorless laugh. She's furious. About the money. About you. About all of it. That doesn't surprise me, I said. She says you're trying to turn me against her. I didn't react immediately. Instead, I reached for one of the folders and placed it gently on the table in front of him. I'm not turning you against anyone, I said. I'm giving you information. What you do with it is your choice. He looked at the folder, then at me. Slowly, he opened it. Inside were the financial records, every payment I had made over the years.
Dates.
Amounts. Notes. He flipped through them, his expression tightening. I didn't realize it was this much, he admitted. That's because you were never meant to, I said softly. I didn't help you to keep score. He nodded slightly, but his eyes stayed on the pages. There's more, I said. I handed him another set of papers. This time, it was different. Screenshots. Messages. At first, he frowned, not understanding what he was looking at. Then his expression changed, confusion, then disbelief, then something sharper. Where did you get these? He asked. They were sent to me, I replied carefully. By who? I hesitated for just a second. Someone who thought you deserved to see them. He didn't push further. He didn't need to. His eyes moved quickly across the screen captures, Lydia's messages to her friends. Casual, careless, unfiltered. I watched as the moment happened. The moment where doubt turned into realization. This can't be real, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I stayed silent. He read more. His hand tightened around the paper. She didn't mean it like that. He tried again, weaker this time. I still didn't interrupt. Then he reached one message and stopped completely. His face went pale. What is it? I asked gently. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed me the page, pointing to a line. I don't need to work hard, it read. As long as Daniel feels guilty and his mom keeps paying, we're set. The room felt very quiet. Daniel leaned back slowly, running both hands over his face. I don't understand, he whispered. I moved a little closer, but not too close. I think you do, I said softly. He shook his head, like he was trying to physically reject the idea.
No.
Lydia wouldn't, she wouldn't do that. People are complicated, I replied. And sometimes they show different versions of themselves to different people. He stared at the floor for a long time. I defended her, he said finally. Every time you tried to say something, every time things felt off. I told myself you were just being protective. Or difficult. I didn't react to that. It wasn't new information. I chose her, he continued, his voice breaking slightly. Over you. This time, I did respond. You chose your partner, I said. That's what you're supposed to do. But that doesn't mean you were given the full truth. He let out a long breath, his shoulders slumping. She told me you didn't want to come to things. That you said no. That you were busy. That you didn't like being around us. I closed my eyes briefly. I was never invited. The words hung between us.
Simple.
Final. He nodded slowly, like pieces were finally locking into place. She said you criticized her, he added. I didn't, I said. I know, he said quickly. Or, I think I know now. Silence filled the room again, but it felt different this time. Less tense. More heavy. So, what happens now? He asked. It was the same question he had asked before, but now it carried weight. Now it mattered. That depends on you, I said. I can't make decisions about your marriage. I won't. But I can tell you what I'm doing. He looked up. I'm not giving you money anymore, I said clearly. Not because I don't love you, but because it's not healthy. For either of us. He nodded. I understand, he said quietly. And this time, I believed him. I'm also not going back to the way things were, I continued. If we have a relationship, it has to be based on honesty. On respect. Not obligation. He swallowed hard, then nodded again. I want that, he said. I studied his face, searching for any sign of hesitation. There wasn't one. For the first time in a long time, he looked present. I need to talk to her, he added. A small tension returned to my chest. That won't be easy, I said. I know, he replied, but I can't ignore this. He stood up slowly, like the decision itself had weight. His phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it and frowned. She's asking where I am, he said. What will you tell her? He looked at me, and for the first time since he walked in, there was something steady in his eyes. The truth, he said. I nodded. And just like that, everything shifted. Not resolved. Not fixed. But changed. And deep down, I knew something else too. This conversation wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something much harder. Because the moment truth enters a situation built on lies, nothing stays the same. The confrontation didn't happen quietly. It happened fast. Too fast. Daniel had barely stepped outside to call Lydia when everything began to unravel. I stood near the window, watching him pace back and forth across the driveway, his free hand moving sharply as he spoke. Even from inside, I could tell the conversation wasn't calm. It wasn't controlled. It was the kind of conversation that doesn't leave anything untouched. Within 15 minutes, I heard a car pull up too quickly, tires scraping slightly against the pavement. I didn't need to look to know it was her. The front door opened before I could reach it. Lydia stepped inside like she owned the space, her expression already set. Not confused, not concerned, but furious. Her eyes moved quickly around the room, landing on the papers, the folders, the evidence spread across the table and floor. For a split second, something flickered across her face. Not guilt, recognition. Then it was gone. "What is this?" she demanded sharply, her voice cutting through the air. "What have you been telling him?" Daniel walked in behind her, closing the door more quietly than she had opened it. His posture had changed, straighter, firmer. He didn't look at me. He looked at her. "The truth," he said. She let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "The truth? You mean her version of it?" "No," he replied. "I mean the actual truth." I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I had already said everything I needed to say. This wasn't my conversation anymore. Lydia turned toward him fully now, her expression shifting into something softer. Calculated, controlled. "Daniel," she said, lowering her voice slightly, "whatever she showed you, it's not what it looks like. She's been waiting for an opportunity to turn you against me." "I talked to your sister," he said. That changed things. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Her composure cracked for just a second. "Claire," she said, sharper now, "she's been jealous of me for years. You know that." "I also saw the messages," he continued, his voice steady. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. "What messages?" she asked, but there was no confusion in her tone anymore. Only caution. He picked up one of the printed pages and held it up. "This one," he said, "about my mom being a financial safety net. About not needing to worry as long as she keeps paying." Lydia didn't respond immediately. Then, slowly, she crossed her arms. "So what?" she said. The shift was immediate.
No denial. No explanation.
Just defiance. "People vent," she continued. I was frustrated. "That doesn't mean I meant it literally." Daniel stared at her like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. "You also wrote that once the house is paid off, you'd distance yourself completely," he added quietly. She rolled her eyes. "You're seriously taking private messages out of context right now?" "No," he said. "I'm finally putting them into context." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Lydia turned toward me. This time, there was no softness. No attempt at politeness. "You did this," she said coldly. "You went digging, twisting things, turning him against me." "I didn't need to twist anything," I replied calmly. "I only showed him what was already there." "You think you're the victim here?" she snapped. "You've been controlling him for years. Always there, always watching, always interfering." "I supported him," I said. "There's a difference." "With money," she shot back. "That's control." "No," Daniel said suddenly. Both of us looked at him. "That wasn't control," he continued. "That was help. Something we asked for. Something we accepted." Lydia turned to him sharply. "So now you're on her side?" "I'm not choosing sides," he said.
I'm choosing honesty.
That landed harder than anything else. She stared at him, searching his face, looking for hesitation. There wasn't any. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice quieter now but more dangerous. You're letting her manipulate you. He shook his head slowly. I think that's what I've been doing to myself this whole time. The room felt smaller, tighter, like everything was closing in. You're really going to throw away our marriage over this? She asked. I'm not throwing it away, he said. I'm realizing what it was built on. Another silence. Then finally she said it.
Fine.
Just one word, but it carried weight. If that's how you feel, she continued, grabbing her bag, then maybe you don't deserve me. No one stopped her. She moved quickly toward the door, then paused just long enough to look back at me. This isn't over, she said. I met her gaze, without flinching. I know, I replied. And then she was gone. The door closed behind her, not slammed this time, but still final. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Daniel sat down heavily, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands covering his face. I can't believe it, he murmured. I really can't. I walked over slowly and sat beside him. You don't have to figure everything out today, I said gently. He let out a long breath. It feels like everything I thought was real wasn't. That's what manipulation does, I said. It doesn't look obvious while you're in it. He nodded, but didn't look up. What do I do now? He asked. It was the same question again. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was grounded. You take it one step at a time, I said. And you make decisions based on what you know now, not what you were told before. The weeks that followed were difficult. There was no clean ending, no easy resolution. Lydia didn't disappear quietly. She fought, emotionally, legally, publicly. Stories spread. Accusations followed. At one point, she even tried to claim that I had interfered financially in a way that harmed them. But this time, things were different. Daniel didn't bend. He questioned. He verified. He stood his ground. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth became harder to ignore, even for others. It wasn't quick. It wasn't painless. But it was real. Months later, the house was sold. The finances were separated. The relationship ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a quiet, undeniable understanding that it could not continue. And through all of it, something else began to rebuild. Not what we had before. Something better. More honest. A year later, on a calm Sunday morning, I stood in my garden again. The same place where everything had shifted. The flowers I planted that day had grown, blooming in quiet defiance of everything that had happened. I heard a car pull into the driveway. This time, I smiled before even turning around. Daniel stepped out, holding a small bag. Happy Mother's Day, he said.
No hesitación. No tensión.
Just sincerity. I hugged him tightly. Thank you, I said softly. We sat outside for a while, talking about simple things, work, plans, nothing heavy. And yet, everything felt meaningful. At one point, he looked at me and said, You know, canceling that money was the best thing you ever did.
I thought about that.
About how difficult it had been, how final it had felt. I didn't do it to hurt you, I said. I know, he replied. You did it to stop hurting yourself. I nodded. And in that moment, I realized something important. Losing control of a situation isn't always a loss. Sometimes, it's the only way to take your life back. And as I looked at my son, not as a child, not as someone I needed to protect or provide for, but as a person standing beside me, I understood that what we had now wasn't built on obligation. It was built on choice. And that made all the difference.